For 20 years, Jane Linley-Thomas has held the hands of KwaZulu-Natalians with her compassion, kindness, and sense of humor. On this episode, Jane and I reflect on the 2 decades that has been as an East Coast radio DJ, and we look forward to what's in store and what's in the future for her. Jane and I discuss in detail the importance of raising awareness around men's health and her upcoming men's health campaign, as well as the importance of self-care, self-love, and having a healthy relationship with oneself. I think there's loads of amazing self-improvement nuggets here, and I really think you're going to enjoy this one. Be sure to check Jane out on all her social media platforms, which is linked below. And as always, like, share, subscribe, and enjoy. The weather stopped us from connecting in person, but God bless technology. So here we are remotely. Welcome to the Expect Performance podcast. It's lovely to have you.
Clinton, thank you so much. And although we're not sitting, next to each other, I still feel like what an opportunity to connect heart to heart and eye to eye. So thank you so much for having me.
Exactly. Only a pleasure. So Jane, how are you today? Give me the most honest answer that you can.
I'm good. I'm actually in a really good space. It's taken me a while to get to this space of feeling like the overarching kind of mood or narrative in my life is peace. It hasn't always been like that, but I'm in a really buoyant state right here, right now. So thank you.
Very nice. Funnily enough, I'm the same way. So I had a bit of a turbulent start to the year. We're going to chat about mental health in a little bit later on in the interview. But I feel like I'm very much in that same space. I think the best word for me is content. I'm happy, I'm content, I'm at ease. And at the same time, I feel more resilient. So I'm not so susceptible to hardship, self-doubt, etc. So it sounds like we're in a similar space, which is a nice space to be, especially over the last couple of years.
Yeah, and I think as well, it's like we have to go, it's like that no rain, no flowers. We have to hit that place of, oh my gosh, I actually want better and I want more for my life. And this is going to be the benchmark of where I don't want to return very often. And once you have that benchmark, it's when you really get to enjoy the feeling of contentment, because you've drudged through the hard stuff to kind of break through to the other side. So what a beautiful work, and well done for doing the work.
Yeah, 100%. It's a journey, ongoing journey, never ending. So Jane, you've recently said goodbye to East Coast Radio in the form that it has been over the last 20 years. Have you had time to reflect on those last 20 years and what is that time with East Coast? What does it mean to you?
Yeah, Clint, it's been emotional. But I mean, as I say to people so often, it's like you don't wake up and have a baby in the cot. You've had preparation to prepare for that baby that's in the cot. But in saying that, no preparation can bring you to that place of realizing the finality of turning that microphone off. I turned it on for the first time in 2003, and East Coast has always been the backdrop to my life. When I arrived there as a very naive 23-year-old, single and ready to mingle, it was my safe space when I met my husband, when he proposed to me. The morning my grandmother died, I was on air. The birth of my kids. I mean, all the huge milestones have been shared with our province and with the medium. So it's not even about saying goodbye. It is inherently inside of me. I feel like KZN and its people and East Coast Radio will forever live in a very special place. But it was just time for me to return home. And I think that was a real, I've accessed courage and bravery like never before, because a lot of me was saying, well, if it's not broke, don't fix it. Like, why leave? But when I arrived in 2003, I was very clear about what I wanted to do. And that was to be a conduit for experience, to be that person that people could connect with and through. I wanted to be the first female presenter that ever had her own daytime show as an anchor. And it took me 15 years of no until I got my yes. And then I was like, well, I've been here for 18 years. I like the look of 20, so I'm going to round it off. And when that happened in March, I was like asking myself really big questions. Like, in 10 years' time, when I look back on my life and realize that I'm working on weekends away from my family to go and be with KZN's family, is that going to be okay with me? And I started to kind of unpeel the onion and realize that I had to role model courage for myself, for my children, and for my community. And I think so many of us become paralyzed by fear at some stage or other about the responsibility that certain opportunities give us in our lives. And I just had to kind of bite the bullet and kind of take the step. And I'm so glad I did. I'm so glad I did. But it's been a roller coaster, to put it mildly.
I can imagine. And invariably when you close off one chapter, there's the unknown of the next chapter. And it becomes it could be a very creative space. And two, also a very anxiety provoking space, depending, I suppose, on how you frame it. What do you have going forward? What have you done that's enabled that transition, and what are you looking forward to on the next step of your career?
Well, I mean, I've been working very hard behind the scenes to ask myself big questions like, what is Jane Linley-Thomas without East Coast Radio? And when I kept coming back to the essence of what I love about radio, it's people. So, I've created kind of little like offshoots of my brand, like Kindness Can and the Rejoice Collection. And for me, I'm dedicating my life to connecting with people through purpose and play. I've got so many beautiful lines in the water and projects on the go, which is really exciting. But you mentioned something, and I think it's a huge roadblock to anybody, regardless if they're in a creative space or not, is that being locked into that fear and anxiety and that scarcity mindset. Because, that internal monologue, and God bless our brain for being designed to keep us alive and not make us happy. So always looking for the worst case scenario. But when you put that into the driving seat of your life becomes really, it starts to suffocate you, because the what ifs and the unknown becomes so scary. And I got to a place where I was more scared to stay still than I was to move forward. Because I don't believe that you can grasp your future if you are holding your past. So it's that whole concept of letting go to move forward. But you free fall into this dark space with that internal monologue that is always kind of, as I say, preempting the worst case scenario. I've been doing so much work behind the scenes with Kindness Can on really, really drilling down into that relationship with myself. Because at the end of the day, I know that I belong to me. And I can do scary things because if I don't land it, it's okay. I got me. So the relationship with myself has been a huge, huge puzzle piece in this particular chapter. But going forward, in my relationship with self, in my relationship with my husband, my kids, my community, it's the backbone.
It's so crucial to have a foundation, I think, and very few people actually take the time to figure out what they're about.
Mm-hmm.
What do I stand for? What is good for me?
Mm-hmm.
Unapologetically.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a very difficult road to go down, because you don't know what you're going to find the harder you look.
Yeah.
And it means people confronting a lot about possibly their past, acknowledging previous failures.
Mm-hmm.
It can mean a whole lot of different things, and a lot of people are kicking the can down the road.
Yeah,
not wanting to find that out about themselves, to get clear on what exactly is it that you want from your life.
I think we also become so uncomfortable with discomfort. So instead of sitting with that really uncomfortable feeling and asking and being curious with it, what we normally do as people is we band-aid it and we build a wooden fire escape. So that feeling arrives and it's like, instead of sitting with it and being uncomfortable, it's like, oof, I'm going to have a glass of wine. Or, oof, I'm going to buy that pair of snakeskin boots. Or we are continually looking and searching for things outside of us when actually we have all the answers inside of us. But that takes something really critical to happen, and that is listening. I don't think we listen to ourselves enough. There is so much noise around us that we have to really be intentional about where we are listening.
I love that, being intentional
Mm,
and finding meaning, because I've
mm,
read, I'm about to finish my third lap around this particular book, Man's Search for Meaning, Viktor
mhm,
Frankl.
mhm,
And he speaks about logotherapy, and logotherapy meaning finding your purpose in life, finding meaning, and how
mhm,
that is the antidote to depression, to trauma, to suffering. Because once you can find a meaning and a purpose, suffering ceases to be suffering, as he says
right,
in his book.
right.
And that's such a powerful thing, to find a meaning and a purpose. And it's amazing. It's like an elixir. And that's what this podcast is for me, on a personal note. Is it's something that I always wanted to do. At the start of the year, I felt like I was in a rut. Yeah, I could do my job very well, but I didn't feel like it was very stimulating anymore.
Mhm,
And that's when you start to become idle, your mind starts to wander, and you start to get into a bad space. And then all of a sudden, that slippery slope, you're just going down like that.
mhm,
And it comes out of nowhere almost.
yeah,
And something just as simple as this, to put my creative energy into something different, to challenge the way that I'm thinking, to listen to other people and hear about how they think about certain things,
yeah.
is it's changed. In a small sense, it's changed my entire year.
Mm.
But as I look back and reflect, it's going to be without question a highlight for me, and something that I don't intend on stopping now, because it's just so valuable to me on a personal level.
I love it, because what you're doing is you're serving. And I don't think people really comprehend the double blessing of serving others. Because for me as well, like, my life is richer when I can impart vulnerability, authenticity, connection, storytelling, for people to say, I feel like that too. That for me gives me such a buzz. It energizes me. It changes the whole way in which I move through my day, knowing that I can hold space for other people so that they feel less alone. Because I think in a world that's been created to be so connected through social media, we've never been more fragmented and isolated. So these kind of conversations are so important for the energetic flow of our world, that I'm so happy that you did it, because I think a lot of us have these ideas and we don't have the courage to believe that we could do it. So that brain again is like, yeah, you could do it, but what if, da 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 da. And usually people get stuck on that. But for the fact that you actually push through, and now you can see the energetic gifting that it's bringing you and the people around you, it's a win-win. It's so cool.
Exactly. And it's like there's these moments. I saw a video from Will Smith, actually,
Yeah.
and he was talking about, I think, skydiving, and he said that he was talking about his experience of skydiving, and he said of the point after the point of maximum fear is complete ecstasy. And he
Right.
said that that point of being so fearful, standing on the edge of the plane, knowing that you're going to jump off into the abyss,
Yeah.
and then immediately the moment you jump off, it's like there's this complete ecstasy. And I experienced that with shark diving. And you go out and you head out to Alawal Shoal, and then you see these fins, dum dum dum, the Jaws music's going on in your head, and you see these shadows, and everything in your body is saying, whatever you do, don't you get off that flippin' boat. And you got your little flippers on, and you're thinking, shit, I look even more like a fish now with the flippers. I look like a lovely seal. And then I promise you, it's the most unbelievable experience. You then drop into the water, and fear gone like that instantly. I didn't feel unsafe once in the 30 minutes that we're in that water. Literally, my flipper kicked the one shark in the head as it was swimming underneath me. It's that, like, they're literally around you.
Wow.
And just from a mental, these experiences can teach you things,
Yeah.
and you can refer back to them, and they're symbolic. And I think that's what it symbolizes here as well, is that you just have to be willing to take the plunge. Just start.
Mm. Mm.
Don't go in there with expectations of want to change the world or whatever, just do it for you. And if you do something for you, it's authentic, and people will gravitate towards that naturally because they feel that it's you, and they'll buy into you, not some fake, I'm doing it because I want X, Y, and Z at the end of it.
100%. What I also pick up on that kind of experience, I don't know if you feel the same, it's like when you go to the bush. When you're sitting on that landy and you've got these elephants or whatever animal around you, you become so small in your significance. And I love that whole kind of flip of, you might be king of the hoop in the boardroom, but you get onto the back of a landy, you are nothing. You are part of the vehicle, you hope, that no one can see shape or form, because that's what they tell us. But I love that kind of being so small that you become insignificantly part of the backdrop in the bush. And that's kind of in the sea as well, I would assume the same. It doesn't matter how much you earn, what car you drive, when you got your flippers on and you circling with sharks, you just are hoping for the best out there.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. It's very humbling.
Sure.
And very grounding. You mentioned
Yeah.
something earlier about loneliness. And are you familiar with, I can never pronounce her name correctly, Brené Brown?
Brené Brown,
have you read any of her
course.
stuff?
Yes, I've got all of her books. Yes.
I do.
Yes.
So Atlas of the Heart.
Yes, I've got it on my desk.
Fantastic. Fantastic. So one thing that stood out to me with that book is she did a chapter or description on loneliness. And that hit me like a ton of bricks. Like if I think back to that book, that is the first thing that comes into my mind, and the research that was behind it, and how loneliness shortens your lifespan. And this is proven. This is not an opinion piece. Shortens your lifespan by more than drinking, more than smoking, more than obesity, being alone. And that was like a major moment for me, is how important it is to be part of a community and to also serve that community in whatever capacity that an individual has. But I mean, it's unbelievable how much of a difference loneliness makes in a person's life.
Deep connection is the opposite of loneliness, right? And all of us have this inherent desire to be loved and to belong and to connect. I've just finished watching a documentary called The Secrets of the Blue Zone, which has just blown my mind, because it's about this guy that goes around and finds the common thread between people that have exceeded the age of 100 years old, and had a look at that data and said, okay, so what are the common things here? And loneliness came up as one of the, it will halve your life expectancy. I mean, that's not a stat that I want to, it's got a huge impact on your life longevity. But joy and purpose and connection and happiness are all things that give us belonging and that glue. So for me, I've just done the most incredible project with TAFTA, because I had this idea that our elders are the greatest storytellers of our generation. And I feel like society doesn't hold space and include our elders the way in which they should be included, from a storytelling point of view, but they almost feel forgotten. So I went and approached TAFTA and said, listen, I want to put together something quite far out there. It's going to end in an elders fashion show on the 27th of October, where 12 elders will be styled by myself. We will do a bit of storytelling around their stories. But what came out the most was the joy around being connected and participating. I just feel like there is such we're missing something there with our elders in particular, where they are the rhinestones of our community. What they have forgotten, we are still to learn. And I would have walked past that woman in particular and not known that she had been in the South African aviation for 23 years. I would have walked past that woman and not known that she had been head of the surgical ward at Gray's Hospital for 35 years, the first woman of color. They are sitting on all these incredible stories, but they feel isolated. So loneliness, sure. That was one of the driving factors that pushed me to my resignation, because I'd wake up on a Monday morning and I'd feel lonely. I hadn't seen my family. I was so busy mumming and momming and parenting Monday to Thursday to Friday And then when it was restoration and connection and rejuvenation and recharging, I was working. And I'd wake up on a Monday morning feeling depressed, feeling lonely, like I don't feel connected to my tribe. So that was one of the big like messages for me, is you need to get back to your community. And then I was starting to feel very disingenuous, because here I spend a lot of my time connecting with people and encouraging them to be brave and to lean into discomfort and lean into belonging. And I wasn't doing it. Where I was most stuck, I was paralyzed. And yes, I'd started that business, and yes, I'd started that and been a part of that. And when you look at my socials, it looks like I'm, thriving, which I was. But the one place I was most scared and paralyzed, I wasn't accessing. So loneliness and disingenuous were the things that sparked the movement.
Wow, that's very insightful. And kudos to you for taking the action, because there's a lot of people who will draw inspiration from that, hopefully in their own lives, to have the courage to stand up and to take that step. I did a podcast
before you go on, the biggest narrative that has come back from my resignation is emails from people saying, you have given me the courage to leave that relationship. You have given me courage to put my CV into circulation. It can bring tears to my eyes that through my most vulnerable and literally ended up with me on my daughter's bedroom floor on my hands and knees praying to God at 1:45 a.m. Not for solution, but for respite. Because it had become so overwhelming that I just thought, if I can help navigate one person get through what I'm going through now, it will be worth it. So for those emails to come, and they still come, I want people to realize that we have one opportunity at this one thing called life. And if you get the opportunity to have a half a millisecond of looking where you are going to be in 30 years and looking back on your life, are you going to be proud of the person that you were? Warts and all. I'm not asking for perfection. I'm not asking for highlight reel. I want you to come fully flawed, but I want you to come okay with the decisions that you're making for now, because we only have now. And I'm really, really passionate about
there's no future.
That.
There's only the current moment.
100%. So sorry to have interjected your thought process that you were talking about a podcast that you were listening to.
No, okay. So now I want to come back to that, because I want to build off what you've just said, because I've got a question for you on that.
Yeah.
This might seem strange, but did you feel an element of guilt in your decision to leave East Coast? And what I mean by that is, you've got a good thing going. You're in a privileged position to be able to speak to hundreds of thousands of people and to implement change in that way. And there's a lot of people that would love to have a job like you had and the role that you had over 20 years. Was there an element of guilt thinking, do you know what? Other people would love to have this job. Maybe I'm just being silly. Maybe I should just be happy with where I am now.
You know what? You're the second person that's brought guilt up. And it was actually really amazing that is the one thing I didn't feel. For me, I come from parents who are of a generation that are like, you lucky to be employed. Like, who on earth resigns post-pandemic when the economy is this and that and that, and all the, not naysayers, maybe the realists. But for me, on the converse side of you're lucky to have the job you have, is it's also time for me to open the door for someone else. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's especially for women in the industry, there's so few of us that it becomes a baton passing contest. I'm going to get so-and-so spot because then she's going to be moved. There's so few of us that we move around each other, which also starts to breed a bit of like competitiveness in the game, which, in hindsight, Stacey and I in particular have really extrapolated and conversed around that, because she remembers hearing me the first time she ever came to KZN and feeling so inspired in the way in which I connected with our listeners. And when she came in, she took us, I think she even took my show, I can't remember, a couple of years ago. And I said to her, because we had to come a whole full circle with each other, and we are great friends, but I could have easily have gone into that space of hatred and resentment for her. And I'm so grateful that Paul actually helped me, saying, whenever you see Stacey, I want you to think of her opening the door for you. You're leaving and she's coming in. And I was like, I can live with that. I can live with that. So when I exited now, there was absolutely no guilt. If anything, I felt guilty for having lost time with my family. I felt guilty that when I came home after leaving at 1 o'clock on a Saturday and Sunday afternoon, my children would all be waiting in the driveway for me. And within an hour, it was bedtime and they had to go to school and we had to move along. So never guilt for leaving, but guilt for leaving them, yes. I have guilt for leaving them, which I work through and I'm making good now. You know, it's been 3 weekends since I haven't been on air on the weekends. And we afternoon sleep like bears in a cave, all 5 of us lying together and so connected. The connection stuff that's happened in the last 3 weeks is more that has happened in the last 3 years. So that for me is just a beautiful thing.
I love that. And I love how you framed it in a way that you're a piece of something bigger. I think when we get into a space which is not where a person would want to be as we start to head down a dark road, it becomes, for the want of a better word, very self-absorbed. You know, you don't see the big picture. It's very oriented on the day to day, whereas we are all part of a bigger journey, and we see ourselves. If you can see yourself as a vessel for change that can influence and allow other people to thrive, if you're doing something that is in line with your calling, that is fulfilling, it should benefit everybody. It shouldn't come at the expense of somebody else, if that makes sense. It should be something that everybody can benefit from at some stage or another. And I think that's often lost, especially now when it's, dog eat dog and corporate and, everybody, you get winners and losers, and that's it. And if you're not losing, you're winning. And if you're not winning, you're losing. And it's such a refreshing stance to take on something like that. So kudos to you. But I'll come
there's
back
enough
to
for
what I
all of
was
us,
going to
Clint.
say
There's
earlier.
enough for all of us. You know what I mean? We can all share and we can all celebrate each other's victories and clap for each other and, be cheerleaders for each other, because for me, that's the kind of world I want to live in. And that's the kind of space I want to create, is where we're all winning, regardless if we're winning or losing.
Exactly. So I did an interview with a forensic pathologist about 3-4 weeks ago. And I think he said over 15,000 autopsies he's conducted over the course of his career. And he said the ones that he struggles with the most is the increased number of really decomposed bodies. And the reason why he battles with that is because the loneliness factor, the fact that there was nobody else that was visiting that person on a regular basis. There was no family left. There were no friends. There was no community. So the body had decomposed essentially because nobody knew that this person had even passed on. And he said that is the one that really used to hit him, because freak accidents, terrible, obviously. But the fact that there was nobody for that person is heart-wrenching. And sadly, he said those are on the up, which I think also points to what you were saying about the elderly and how we can really bring them back into our community and we can learn from them and make them feel a part of something again.
Yeah, absolutely. I was in Maritzburg last week with the Peter Maritzburg Homeless Network. They had a fundraiser in the evening. And when I saw the flyer come into my inbox a few months ago, I was so compelled to be a part of it in some which way, shape, or form. And I kind of put out a call to a few people and said, will you join me on this escapade? We're going to just love on people in Maritzburg. And it turned into just the most humbling experience. We went and, spent the day with some of the homeless people in Maritzburg for the day. And Caroline Holly from Life Changer, her organization is just so amazing. And they had a hand washing station and a toothbrush station and haircuts and meals and games. And it was just so wonderful. I went and set up a little set and we did portraits and I had a dress up section. And, the night before I went, I thought, I don't want to ever make a homeless person feel like they are being made to feel silly or dress up, but I really hope I find that sweet spot of giving people permission to play regardless of where they've been, where they are, or where they're going. And oh my gosh, it's just one of those things that you can't explain. You could only feel it. But to see a line of homeless people queuing up to just play, because we are all inherently, as children, we are born kind, and we can all tap into, regardless of how hard circumstances been, snapshots of play, even if it was for escapism. There is that thing that is alive in all of us. And I feel like adults in particular have forgotten how to play. We've become so serious. We've become so pigeonholed by our responsibility with taxes and the crime and the this and the that and the na 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 na. So going back to just actually holding space for people regardless of their story, and you could just feel that deep connection as people laughed at each other with the feather boa or the hat on, or why did you put that on rather? Yeah, those sunglasses look fantastic with that over shoulder, whatever. It was just a really, really beautiful, beautiful thing to observe. And again, regardless if you're the CEO of a company or somebody not knowing where they're going to sleep tonight, we all want to just feel like you see us, you see me, right here, right now. I'm not invisible and I am connected to something greater.
I absolutely love that. And in that sense, kindness could almost act as an antidote to loneliness, because a random act of kindness to a stranger might cause them to challenge their existing perspective that they are lonely and that nobody else cares about them. A random act of kindness might have the power to challenge that, and for them to say, hey, actually, maybe people do care. Maybe if I put myself out there, maybe if I go join a yoga class, or maybe if I start doing bowls or go and take up golf, there'll be more people like that might care. And maybe I can make new friends, and maybe I can change my life. And there's this ripple effect that just happens, that you don't even see the consequences of your actions, really. You don't know the series of chain reactions that one act of kindness has started that might have far-reaching effects to people that you would never have dreamed of.
So Kindness Can started with Paul and I. So Paul had written a book, a parenting book, and he emailed me. I was doing lunchtime on East Coast at the time, and I got this email from this unknown guy saying, hey, I've written a book. Will you do the forward for the book? And I thought, gosh, how cheeky. He hasn't even sent me a book or like anything to look at. And then I Googled and saw how good looking he was, and we've been friends ever since. I mean, that's always the joke. But what we realized in our first meeting was, in my time for holding space for Human Story on air, and Paul's time being a cognitive behavioral specialist psychologist, his time holding space for people in his practice, 90% of the stories when we started exchanging, if kindness had been in play, circumstance would have been different. And that was wild for us. It was absolutely one of those penny drop moments of like, oh my gosh, this is huge. But kindness starts with kindness to self, because you're not going to be able to go and enroll yourself in the bowls or connect with the yoga class if you don't have a semi-soundish relationship with yourself, a kind relationship with yourself. So kindness to self before others. And that is a huge cornerstone of the work that Paul and I do with Kindness Can, going into organizations and companies and schools, is to really help unpack that thoughts lead to feelings and feelings lead to behavior. And if you can slow down those 3 points and do work in pockets between the three, you can't believe how the outcome can just be completely, completely different. Because again, we are all born kind, we are inherently kind, but through conditioning and through circumstance, and sometimes I have to apologize, the media drive walls against us and tell us that we're different because we're different because. But when you sit in a room of 500 people and ask questions about who wants to feel loved in their life and seen and valued, regardless of creed, race, denomination, or anything else, everybody wants the same thing. So we're
Yeah.
actually all on the same journey.
Yeah, exactly. And so, for example, I've got this band. Um, it's worn off now, but it's got TBT on the inside, which is thoughts become things.
Mm-hmm.
And the principle is essentially to create awareness, self-awareness of the thoughts that I'm feeding myself.
Mm-hmm.
And if I think a negative thought, one that I can pick up consciously, obviously, I would then change and I would switch it from the right hand to the left hand
Love
with the
that.
idea that I need to release that thought, not fight it, acknowledge that it was there, release it so that by the time it's on the other hand, I can move on with my life.
Well
And
done. That's
as you start,
brilliant. I love
yeah,
that. That is so cool. Because what
yeah,
you're doing there is you're creating different neural pathways. You know, so many of us get stuck in sometimes the words that don't even belong to us. Someone said it somewhere along the way, and your brain was like, "Oh, I'm going to take that and I'm going to put that above my head as my headline," and you live shrouded under that really bad feeling. But I love the way that you are constantly reconfiguring the neurodiversity there, because your brains, when you think the same thing over and over and over again, it's like when you go to the Midlands and you arrive after a very rainy patch. The big 4x4s that have been through, they have created these big dips in the land. That's exactly what's going on in here. So to be curious with it, with self-compassion, and ask it, are you true? Are you kind? Those are big questions. Are these words my own words? That is such like
yeah,
valuable self work. I mean, it's wild. I love that moving arm to arm. That's so cool.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it is the essence of what ultimately manifests later down the line. It starts with a thought. And then if that thought repeats over and over again, then it will gather steam, and positive or negative.
Yeah.
You mentioned something earlier about social media and how it looks like, things were going great for you. And it obviously was. And social media is a powerful thing. It can be used for a lot of good, obviously. But at the same time, comparison
Mm,
comparison becomes, oh man, it becomes a nasty bugger,
yeah.
and imposter syndrome, and
Yep.
comparing yourself to other people all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And basically what's happening in your brain when you're looking at all these people that are crushing it, it says be like everybody else, but be better than them. So
Mm-hmm.
not only are you saying we must conform in some sense, and we must be like those other people because they must be doing something that we're not doing or I'm
Yep.
not doing,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm going to hold myself to even a higher expectation that I must then be better. And the problem with that is then, well, what's the yardstick? Better according to what?
Mm-hmm.
Better according to the clothes that that person wears, better according to how much money they have, how many followers they have.
Yeah.
And it always needs to come back to what exactly do you want as the individual. But I'm curious on what your thoughts on social media are, seeing as that you're so prevalent on there and you've had that platform for so long.
Yeah. I mean, I love it. As you say, when things are great, it's great. But I am a human too and get caught in that vortex of that blue light. And I think I'm serving myself great inspiration, but I'm actually serving myself comparison as the thief of joy. Because when I put
Mm,
that phone down, I'm like, well, exactly what you're saying. I didn't do that, or I didn't feel that, or my family doesn't look like that, or we don't go to we don't go and watch the Rugby World Cup. And I can hear my kids saying, oh, it's so unfair. Everyone goes to Disneyland on holiday. And I mean, back in the day, you would compare yourself with the Joneses, right? And the Joneses were possibly the next door neighbors. Now you can compare yourself with the world from your
yeah,
bed. And it's not good at all. So I have to be very, very clear in raising children as well, because I'll put a video up and they'll be like, so how many likes? How many likes has it got? And I'm like, whoa, we need to slow that whole process down.
yeah.
So I've always tried to, especially probably more on radio, like I'm not scared to cry. I'm not scared to mispronounce a word or be fall down. Fall down in public's not a problem for me. I don't mind falling down in public. I could probably do it more on my social media platforms per se. But that for me is a real opportunity to curate something that is beautiful. And especially like something I'm working on at the moment, which is a men's mental health campaign, which launches on the 1st of November. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be layered and textured and vibrant and abundant. And, I'm really going into that space of curating spaces that can tell really important stories. So
Yeah.
it was actually after yeah. You want me to carry on? I can
Yeah,
talk for
sorry,
days.
continue. There was just a bit of a lag there.
Oh, sure. It was actually after the Barbie movie. I took my daughter and her friend, so two 11-year-olds, and I took my 13-year-old son and my 11-year-old son, and we went to watch Barbie. And I really expected it to be like a Clueless type of movie where it was all like, should I wear Jimmy Choo or LV? Or I just thought it would be very fashion centric and escapism. Not to say that there weren't some really cool conversations about patriarchy and whatever that came out of that. Living a kind of facaded life with my daughter. And, when you sad, really cool and valuable lessons came out of that. What I didn't appreciate was I just left with that feeling of I wish Barbie didn't need to kind of push Ken down in order to get up. There is a scene on the beach in particular that just left a really bad taste in my mouth. And maybe I misread it, but I left that movie feeling like I am a mother of sons. I am a wife of a beautiful husband. I am a daughter of a wonderful father. I need to hold space for men. I'm going to go on a mission. So myself and Amy White, who's a photographer, went on this mission, and I kind of approached 30 KZN men and said, would you be cool to come and play? So first of all, holding space and then giving permission to play has just been wild to watch men from all walks of life walk into my studio and just experience that. And then to actually have the narrative of their mental health journey underneath the pictures. So every day of November, a different man's profile will go up with a story on his mental health, speaking into his community, which I just think is so valuable. And the narrative that comes out time and time again from things like that was so healing for me. I haven't done that in ages. Thank you for that energy spike. I haven't accessed that part of me for such a long time. It's almost like we're sitting in this place of dormancy. We are dormant. Yet when given permission to play, the shift that happens internally is huge. And again, it's got that domino. It just goes all the way through every cell of your body, into every room that you walk into. It's energy. So I'm really on a mission to tell stories that are important, that are hard stories, give people access to hard stories.
Yeah. I absolutely love that, Jane, because it seems to be something that nobody talks about. We talk about mental health, and especially since COVID, etc. But not enough people do a deep enough dive into men's mental health. So I've done some research on the subject, and women are more likely to be diagnosed with depression. Okay. However, that is because women are more likely to seek the help of a psychologist or a doctor. Men are less likely to do that. And because of society expectations, whether it be from society or self-imposed, being the leader of the household, being the man, shrugging it off hard enough, all of that. Consequently, the suicide rate are 4 times higher in men than it is in women. So despite the fact that more women are diagnosed with some form of mental illness like a depressive disorder, the suicide rate in men is 4 times higher than females. And in South Africa, we're the 10th highest in the world, 10th highest nation in the world as far as suicides go, per 100,000 people. And I've had I wouldn't say struggles, I've had my lessons from depression myself. And I remember thinking, when my psychologist said, okay, Clint, I think we need to medicate for a little bit, get you back on the right footing. And I thought to myself, but my life's not bad. Like I've got a job that I enjoy. I get to chat to people and I get to help them. So it's meaningful and it's fulfilling because I'm trying to find them help them be the best person they can be. I've got a lovely wife and I've had a great childhood. So if I'm feeling like this, how many other people, are not seeking help that are feeling way worse than I am?
Yeah.
And what you're doing in November is so powerful because it creates that platform and that example, a beacon or a shining light, to say to men that it's okay that you can speak about these things. And it's okay to come forward and to say, I'm battling. I need help.
What's been so amazing is the honesty in the narrative. I mean, some guys have really gone there, which I so appreciate, because by going there, it really gives opportunity for shift and change. But, going back to what you said about kind of equating what your story looks like and am I really a worthy candidate for this? It's almost like survivor's guilt. If you go back to what happened in the flooding or the rioting, yeah, we'd be having a tough time, but then you would look across the road and see somebody having a worse time than you, and all of a sudden you felt guilty, like that survivor's guilt. Whereas I just think that if we are able to talk more and access conversation more, it would be so much easier. I don't know if you've watched the David Beckham documentary.
Yes,
But
I'm nearly finished. I'm on my
okay,
fourth
how
episode.
amazing! I mean,
Very good.
any opportunity I get to speak about David Beckham, I've somehow weasel it in and worm it
You-
into every conversation.
Well, have at it. Go for it. I'm listening.
God, he's even like his hands are even hot. I mean, he's just ridiculous. I mean, talk about aging with absolute. Oh, he's just magnificent. Anyway, I digress. When he was going through that really hard pummeling in the 90s with that whole incident versus Argentina, I think it was.
Yes, in the World
Um,
Cup.
yeah, I mean, he speaks about it. In the 90s, nobody was talking about mental health. I mean, he wasn't even like at war with himself. He was at war with the world. The world hated him. I mean, there was one scene with that dummy outside of a pub with a
Outside the
Beckham
pub.
jersey on, with the noose
Yeah.
around its neck. And he was actually finding like escapism in Camp Spice Girl. Thank God for the Spice Girls. I mean, we've loved them always, but even more so now. And he speaks about how his dad used to drive him so hard that was probably one of the things that helped him get through that really hard space. But those days are done. Those days of feeling like you have no one to speak to because you might look a certain way. We've got to change that narrative. We've got to change that narrative. And the only way we're going to change that narrative is by people putting up their hands and not skirting around it, being really direct about it. I mean, I had a guy out of the 30 guys that I approached, one guy said no, it wasn't for him, fair. And the other guy canceled on the morning. This guy that canceled on the morning is a TV presenter, a radio presenter. He is a personality. And he SMSed me in the morning and said, my anxiety is so severe, I can't leave the house today. And it struck me because he's been a friend of mine for a very long time. A, I never knew. And B, to be in a position where you are so crippled that you can't come to me. We're friends. I can't even be that safe space for you. It was a real eye opener. So what that has now left me is to continuously once a week check in and say, are you cool? Are you cool? Are
Yeah.
you cool? Because had he not said anything, because the social media tells me a very different story.
Mm.
And there again,
Yeah.
we build a wall and we put, as Naomi Holt said, palisade fencing between us with spikes. I can't get to you because I don't know.
Exactly. And those are the people that sadly slip through the cracks,
Mm-hmm.
which is why what you're doing is so powerful. And something that really stood out to me is I shared my parts of my journey openly with my clients when they would come into the gym. Females, no issues. I mean, they were just, yeah, okay, cool. Are you okay? Da 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 da. But the men, more than half had a story to share with me about their struggles with mental health without invoking any conversation, nothing. It was just, there's my antidepressants on the counter. I didn't try and hide them. They were there next to my laptop where I would pull up my programs and say, yeah, that's just me at the moment. That's what I'm just going through some stuff. And I'm trying to find and I'm trying to learn and I'm trying to work through it. Didn't ask them a single question. They were like, okay, I'm all into this conversation. Let me tell you about me and the struggles that I went through 5 years ago, 10 years ago, now. Because immediately it was now there was a safe space. Because, okay, this guy, this other male, he can relate to me because he's going through something similar.
But what I love about what you did there, Clint, is that you normalized it. You didn't have to leave your antidepressants next to your computer. You could have put them in your backpack, but you chose to put them out because you normalized it for other men. And that is key, is normalizing it. Because you could have perpetuated the cycle and not said a word. Or you could have spoken about it from a place of, yeah, I'm kind of getting you, but I'm not in. You were like, I'm in. This is where I'm at. Therefore, the door opens and the Me Too happens.
Yeah.
Power. So cool, dude. So cool.
But it's fulfilling, isn't it?
Yes, of course.
So fulfilling.
I don't want to be known, when one day when I cross over the Rainbow Bridge, I don't want to have on my tombstone Jane Linley-Thomas. Jeez, she could multitask that one. Hey, no. I want to be Jane Linley-Thomas, she made better. Or Jane Linley-Thomas, she loved me. Or Jane Linley-Thomas, she tried hard for this. Or all in. Or it's got to be purpose, man. It's got to be purpose. I can't do frivolous. I can't. Even in the playfulness, it might seem really frivolous, but the deeper meaning is conscious. It's awakening. It's connecting. It's fueling. It's life. It's surge. It's energy.
Yeah, love that. So Jane, you've got cool stuff lined up. You've alluded to it already in November. What else has you excited for the future? What can you tell us?
I'm dangerously proactive. So I squeeze absolutely everything I can out of my day from 5:30 until parenting in the middle and then in the evening. I'm working on some really cool stuff. It all has the same thread. I'm a narrator, I'm a creator, and I'm a curator. And all of those things plug into human stories. So we've got the men's mental health. I am working on another campaign for December, which is highlighting frontline workers. Again, we all go and jawl and drink, gin and tonics in December on the verandas of our holidays, wherever that may be, at home or anywhere else. And then you've got the people that are the paramedics, the firefighters, the ER staff. I'm really going on a mission to highlight their stories. So every month for the next year, I have got campaigns that I will be building stories around to share people's experience, therefore create a place for deeper connection.
Bloody fantastic. I love that. It's just 1 month into the next. 2024 is going to be crazy. I'm looking forward to what you've got on offer.
It's going to be beautiful. And obviously a lot of activations around playing. I'm on a real mission in particular for adults. I mean, yes, for schools is wonderful, and Kindness Can is my heart and it's the vehicle. But I just want to make playfulness my business this year, with real deep clarity around purpose and community. I'm so amped. I promise you, I can't sleep at night. I'm so excited for the sun to rise. I can't wait. There are not enough hours in my day. It's a really beautiful gifting to be in a space where I'm so excited about my life.
That is a wonderful space.
I know.
And gratitude, hey?
Oh,
sounds like you've got a lot to be grateful for.
I sit in the lap of gratitude every single day. I mean, one of the hugest things for me and Mark is to raise children that are grateful and not entitled. I'm that painful mother that, look at the dappled sunlight on the floor, and look at the sunrise, and I can't help myself. Like there's so much to be grateful for. So hopefully we'll raise children that are gratitude inspired and curious and generous and helpful and just love on themselves as well. I've got two tweens and a teen, and I can really see them going into that dark space of hating on their bodies or hating on their personalities because of this or that. And I'm just like, oh, self-compassion at all times, just self-compassion as we slowly but surely move one day into the next, because not for all the money in the world would I want to go back to being a teenager. I mean, those years were just so orcs.com. So to really just be a safe space for my kids and to journey with them, and family is everything for me. Community is everything for me. So, I mean, personally, COVID was a really happy time for our family. I'm just so grateful none of us got sick. But when I look back at actually the gifting of being able to lock ourselves away and literally throw away the key, we lived in our tent for a lot of the time, and every school holiday we set up the tent on the veranda and we all move into the tent. We braai our food every night and we camp. We string the fairy lights and we get the bean bags and the fire drum, because that sense of community that came out of COVID has left us different as people. And we tap into that space as often as we can. And yeah, again, how many people can say they're grateful for a pandemic? I mean, obviously there was real trauma that came out of that, and there was some really hard stuff. But for us as a family, personally, that was a really unifying time for us. So to remember the lessons, and just to move forward with an open heart,
Lovely. I feel good. My heart feels open after having this conversation.
No,
I feel like
me
I'm going to
too.
have such an awesome afternoon now.
Yay.
Jane, where can people find you if they want to follow your journey and get involved in some of your projects that you've got on the go?
Yay. Wonderful. Thank you so much. Yeah, I suppose it's any one of my social media platforms. So Jane Linley, that's Linley Thomas. I'm doing a bit of a website relaunch, as one does. But
Nice.
www.lovejlt.com for all things playful and purpose. And yeah, thank you so much for having this platform. I think it's really special. And when Vic said to me, a friend of mine is going to connect with you, and then we connected, yeah, well done for you for putting action into motion. It's a beautiful thing.
Oh, pleasure. I'm glad we did it.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane. Go well.
Mwah! Lots of love, Clint. Bye.
Wait. Before you go. Did you enjoy that episode as much as I did hosting it? Please go on to Apple Podcasts or to Spotify, rate the show, follow the show, subscribe to the show, leave a comment and a review. Every little bit helps. The more reviews that the show gets, the more traction it's going to get, which means that the guests get better and better, the value gets better and better, and then we can continue to grow together and be better as a community. Thank you very much. Have a great day.